Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Unifrog webinar, all about studying in London, what to expect. And today we're going to have three presenters. We've got Fred Bonfil from the University of Westminster. We've got Caitlin Kelly from the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama. And we have Ben Darby from Kingston University. And our three panelists are going to be sharing some different perspectives and viewpoints on what to expect if you're considering studying in London. I'm going to be handing over to Fred in just a second, but I'd like to encourage all of you to use the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. You can ask any questions you might have, and we're going to come to these questions in about 30 minutes time. I'll be putting your questions to our panelists for them to answer. The webinar is also being recorded, so if you do miss anything today, we're going to be sending you the recording, and hopefully you'll be able to catch up on that. And if there are any particular points or anything you want to take away from the slides that are shared today, we can also share the slides with you as well after the session. So without further ado, we're going to get started with Fred from Uni of Westminster. Take it away, Fred. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Greg, and thank you to everybody who's joined in now. I'm going to just share my screen so you can see what I'm going to be presenting this afternoon. Okay, fantastic. So I'm hoping you can all see my screen. And so again, my name is Fred Bonfil. I'm from the University of Westminster. I work as a Senior Student Recruitment and Outreach Officer at the university. And I'm going to spend a few moments just talking to you about the benefits of studying in London. I've been working in the HE sector just shy of 10 years now. I've worked in student services, I've worked in admissions, and I'm now working in student recruitment. And so I'm going to do my best to give you some insights into the benefits of studying in London. And so again, thank you all for joining me. And I hope that you're going to get a lot of information that's going to help you. So in terms of what I'm going to be covering today, we're going to be looking at city university versus campus university. Which is very important that you know the difference between the two and look at also some example of a city university, what that looks like. And also London and diversity. I mean, you can't separate London and diversity. London is very diverse, and we're going to be covering that as well and speak to you a bit more about things you can do in London. Also looking at some data and some facts about London as well. And lastly, most importantly, career and opportunities. You don't want to just go to university. You want to go to university, graduate, and also get a job. And so we're going to speak a bit about the opportunities that are available in London as well. I do appreciate that some of you live in London and others are from outside of London. And so I hope that both types of audiences are going to find this interesting. So let's define city university. So city university, simply buildings and facilities are spread across the city or surrounding area. So what that simply means is that an example is maybe the student accommodation and maybe the actual university campus might not be in the same location. You might maybe need to travel to get to the university campus. Whereas on the other hand, campus university, the main buildings and facilities are located within one area. So example would be maybe you've got the sports facility, the accommodation, and all the other facilities are all in one place. And so you don't have to do much traveling. That's a simple definition for both of them. But let's look into more details in terms of the actual differences. And so if you are thinking about coming to London to study, London universities, generally speaking, are city universities compared to campus universities, although there are some universities in London that might have a campus university feel. But essentially, city universities tend to be based within the city and towns. And so, tends to be busier because you've got the local businesses, you've got the shopping centres, you've got all the other exciting sites to see and things like that are happening. And so it's based within the city and towns, whereas campus university is based around the city and town. So it's not based in the city or towns. And so you might find it might be a bit more quieter compared to city university. And so if you are somebody who likes the more fast-paced type of scenery, then London University is obviously good for you, city university. Okay, so vibrant culture and nightlife. Again, because you are based in the city, for example, University of Westminster, you've got Oxford Street, which is 10 minutes walk from one of our university campuses, where you've got all the shopping centres, all the shops and different things happening. And so during the evening, there's a lot of things to do, a lot of places to go and visit. and also in terms of just the actual kind of environment, the atmosphere is very a lot of vibes basically. And if you look at campus university, you tend to have more of a stronger sense of community because, as you can imagine, everything is based in one location. And because everything is based in one location, you don't have to necessarily travel out to the town centres as such. So everything generally tends to be on campus, although you still have that sense of community on city universities. But just generally speaking, the difference is you find campus universities has more of a stronger sense of community. And of course, London, TfL, overground buses. So in terms of transport, yes, better transport because you can get around. You can go to North London, South London, East London, and West London. You can do that all in a day. And so there's a lot of different things you can do in terms of the transport. But the only downside is really you have to pay, obviously, in terms of cost for travel, etc. Whereas campus university, reduce costs. You don't reduce travel costs rather. You don't tend to be traveling to get to campuses, or you don't tend to travel to get to, for example, the facilities. And so there's less traveling in that sense. And also, again, city university, more buildings and businesses. And so because it is London, you're probably going to see more buildings, in some cases more concrete, and not enough more open kind of green spaces, where you find this more in campus universities. Although I am aware that some city universities will have other kind of green spaces that you can go to, but just generally speaking, campus universities tend to be having that more feel to it. So I've covered this already about the facilities being in one location and also spread across the city. And lastly, before I move on to the next slide, is wider variety of job opportunities compared to campus universities. What I mean by that, simply because you've got all your businesses locally to you, and so you can work in, for example, maybe in a pub. You've got like maybe retail and other different types of businesses, and so there is a lot more work experience available in that sense. And not to say, obviously, campus university has got opportunities potentially on the campus, maybe a student ambassador, but you would have to travel to get to the shopping centres and other places. And so that kind of gives you a bit of the difference. And so it's very important that you know the difference and just know the kind of person that you are. Which type of university feel do you want? Do you want a city university feel, or do you want a campus university feel? This is just an example of a city university campus. University of Westminster, we are a city university. So this is two of our university campuses. So you've got Regent Street campus, which is like 10 minutes walk away from Oxford Street Station. And you've got Marylebone campus, which is literally right opposite Baker Street Station. Both of these are in two separate locations, about 20 minutes away from each other. So this kind of gives you an example of a city university campus. We've got 4 campuses altogether. Do bear in mind as well, what you find in city universities is, generally speaking, depending on what you're studying, will determine which location you'll be based. So in this case, Marylebone campus is business orientated type of courses, whereas Regent Street tends to be more social sciences, languages, and things like that, and courses like that rather. This is the other 2 campuses that we have. You've got Cavendish campus, which is based in Goodge Street Station. It's about 10 minutes walk, central London. And you've got Harrow campus, which tends to be a bit more, just more further away by North Wick Park Station, about a 10 minutes walk. And so this kind of gives you an idea of a city campuses. So even though we have 4 campuses, they're about 20 minutes apart from each other. And so it gives you an idea of the type of experience that you will have at city universities or city campuses. Okay, so let's move on swiftly to London and diversity. Again, I've mentioned that you can't separate the two. Anytime you mention London, the word diversity comes into it. And so it's important to know that London is one of the most diversities in the world. And that is amazing. I mean, there's 40% of Londoners were born cultural. A lot of different festivals and events to attend. Different food to eat if you're like me and you enjoy eating food. I'm sure a lot of us do. There's different types of foods you can get in London, different places you can go to, restaurants. You've got historical places to see. I'm not going to bore you listing all of them, but there's so many different places that you can go to see. You've got over 200 museums and over 390 public libraries. And that kind of gives you an idea of just how multicultural London is. Another thing as well about the University of Westminster is we're one of the most diverse universities in the UK. And you find this to be true with most London universities are very diverse. So, for example, in our student campuses, we've got students from over 170 nationalities. So you can make friends from all over the world and experience different cultures. And so there's plenty to do coming to London. So this is some data just to show you, which I got from it's from the gov.uk website. And it's quite interesting. It shows you the consensus, the census rather, that was taken in 2021. I believe these are done every 10 years. And so this is the most recent one. And you can see from the chart, it shows us that, London is the most ethnically diverse region in London, in England and Wales. And it's quite interesting because if you have a look at the chart, you can see just below there all the different percentages associated to different types of individuals from different backgrounds. And so London Borough of Newham also is the most ethnically diverse of all local authorities in England and Wales. And so, again, you can see the next area that looks quite diverse, probably West Midlands. But if you look at the chart, there's no place like London that is that diverse. And also London has the smallest percentage of people who identify as white British. So again, that's just to echo the fact that London is very multicultural and you're going to meet people from all walks of life. And if you have a look at some other facts and data that I got just before this webinar, actually, it was quite interesting. I was reading some articles about London, and I grew up in London. I'm from London, but a lot of the different data that I saw, I was actually astonished by it myself. And so you've got, for example, London is the most popular city in the UK or in the world for students. So people, not just in the UK, but around the world, want to come to London to study. And so the data shows us that over 500,000 students study in London right now. And that's astonishing. That's a lot of people that choose London as the destination to study. Also, over 200 different languages spoken in London at any given time. I mean, that is a lot of languages being spoken at every given time. And also 40 plus universities in London. I think that's brilliant, right? Because you've got a lot of universities based in London. And what that means is you're going to be going to diverse universities, right? Different universities, very diverse, multicultural, meet different types of people, and you've got options. And because you've got a lot of universities based in London, that means ultimately you're going to have more courses to choose from. So over 30,000 courses to choose from. And that's just a bit of just the data and some of the facts around London and just generally all the different things happening across London. Okay, so just a bit time. What's the time? Okay, yeah, so just a bit kind of making sure that I've got enough time and I'm not going over. So I want to spend just a few moments just talking about career and opportunities. Every time I speak to students, one of the questions that I always get asked regularly is, can I get a job after I graduate from university? And I'm sure that's the type of questions that generally get asked at events, HE fairs, UCAS fairs, and other places. And the question is, yes, depends on the individual. Obviously, there are help and support that are available for you at the university. But I thought this was quite interesting to share with you that obviously, that London is the financial capital of the UK. And so, you just really find that, for example, 75% of Fortune 500 companies have offices in London. And so big companies like Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Google, amongst others, right, all have offices in London, or London is a headquarter for plenty of big companies. So that simply tells me that, you can meet a wide range of professionals, people from different walks of life, other professionals from different countries that come into London, and it presents a good opportunity to network. And also you can attend events, employer events, because ultimately, the networking that you do while you're studying in London with all of these opportunities, the more likely you're going to get a job afterwards. And also job market after graduation. I think London, in terms of jobs, starting salary pays very well. Generally speaking, it is quite an expensive place to live. So salaries are generally quite high. Before I finish off, the internships is very important. At the University of Westminster, we offer a placement year for all of our degrees. So that means that every single person, no matter what you're studying, 1 year, we work with over 100 enterprises and charities. And so there are plenty of opportunities for those who do come to London to study. And I think I'll end it there just so I don't go over time. But again, I appreciate that there are loads of other things I could have covered when it comes to the benefits of studying in London. But these are the things that I personally think that are most important. But do make sure you do your research as well before you come to London. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Fred. That was great. A quick run through of some great benefits of living and studying in London, and hopefully we'll have some questions for you to come to later on about the Uni of Westminster specifically. Moving on for now, we're going to move on to Ben, and he's going to be representing Kingston University. And yeah, keen to hear your thoughts on studying in London, Ben. Obviously, some might be the same, some might be different from Fred. So keen to hear your insight. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Greg. So yeah, my name is Ben. I'm part of the student recruitment team here at Kingston University. Probably more relevant for all of you listening. I'm a graduate of Kingston. I looked to study in London. I wasn't from London, and had many questions coming into it. And there are many things to consider when studying in higher education in London. Going on to my next slide quickly. Obviously, the biggest thing that comes to most people's mind is really the cost. Let's be honest, it's cost. Many students looking to study in London say they are worried about living costs and how expensive London can be. While London is more expensive than most areas in the UK, there are many affordable options for students living on a budget to live and study in London. The first thing you should really consider is, what is your budget? Planning your budget is really crucial, as it will cover your expenses such as accommodation, food, transport, and even your living costs. In London, there are many shops and restaurants and clubs that do offer student deals that you can really take advantage of. There are also many platforms such as Uni Days, Student Beans, and the NUS for student discounts on kind of chain restaurants. Those are things like, Frango Mango, Las Iguanas, and kind of all these chains that do a lot of student discounts. There are also many kind of free events and budget-friendly activities such as gigs, galleries, and exhibitions, such as Fred was saying, all this amazing stuff you can experience. Universities also have many student events and sports clubs and societies that you can really make the most out of. Many students do pay for these costs by applying for a student loan. The student loan company is a government-owned organization that kind of administers loans and grants to students in the university in the UK. Student living in London during their studies do receive a larger maintenance loan, so that really does help a lot of the burden of living costs. And I do realize that, a loan may sound like a really scary prospect, but student loans do not act in the same way as kind of a normal loan. You only start kind of repaying that the April after you graduate, and only once your annual income exceeds £25,000. There are also many other financial support both available from universities and external organizations. Those can include things such as scholarships, grants, and bursaries. These help with living costs and also can help with your course fees. There are also hardship funds. They kind of help with emergency financial support for students in needs. I'm going to give you an example just because it'll contextualize it a bit more for you. Here at Kingston, we offer a Kingston bursary, which last year provided, I think it was around 500 bursaries for about £2,000 for each student in their first year of study. We also offer cost of living bursaries to new students with household income below £25,000. So those are the kind of support you might be able to get at a lot of the universities. You can also earn while you learn. It's a thing to consider is to work along your studies. Many universities offer an ambassador program, such as Fred mentioned, which often is paid work that represents the university. At Kingston, we offer flexible working that fits around your studies and personal commitments. You are paid hourly pay at London living wage, which currently is £13.85 an hour as it currently stands. And you can also develop valuable employability skills, network staff, and kind of students from across the university. So that is another consideration. Another big thing to consider when studying in London is where you live. Let's be honest, it's where you live. It's location, location, location. This kind of goes very well into Fred's presentation with campus versus city. For many of you, this might be the first time you're moving away from home or even coming to London or even the UK. It's important to live somewhere you can really feel safe and comfortable, where you explore your new surroundings, make new friends, learn new skills, and get to know this really amazing, vibrant city, because it is really amazing. And I do love London, and it was the best choice I made coming here. There are kind of three important things to weigh up, I would say, when looking at your options. The first is location, like I said. It's important to get, I think a question to ask is it important that you live close by to where you're studying? You also need to consider budget. Will your loan cover your rent or commute costs to campus? And the final factor to really consider is, when weighing up the many accommodation options, is whether it provides everything you require for your day-to-day needs. For example, is it near a grocery store? Is it near transport links? Is there a gym nearby? And now let's take a look at some of the options. I've got them on screen here for you. One of them being obviously university halls. Most universities do provide these. These are run by the university and are kind of at fixed costs and usually include utilities. There are private halls. These are off-site student accommodation open to all students from different universities, not just your course or your university. There are also private rental. These are shared houses or flats, often more affordable when split between housemates. And then there's also the option, if you don't live too far away from London, you can take advantage of the extensive public transport networks to cut costs and live at home. As a student, you have a lot of options to travel, such as train and tube. You've got the bus, you've got car, you've got bike, and yes, there are even boats you can do as public transport. Yeah, and also, like Fred said, you've got you can take advantage of student Oyster cards, which give you 30% off with a travel card and a bus pass. I think the area you live really makes a big difference to your student experience. Many students at Kingston, for instance, like living in the areas, it's continuously rated as one of the safest boroughs in London. Kingston is located just on the outer side of London, next to Surrey. It's kind of the perfect combination of kind of having this amazing green space, quite calm, but also having the hustle and bustle of the city just not too far away. And you can get into central London within 20 minutes, so you won't have FOMO. All the amazing stuff going on will be just right there. And I think the last thing to consider when looking to study in London really is where you pick to study. I know that sounds like a really odd statement, but like Fred said, we're both on the same train of thought here. There is over 40 higher education institutions in London, so it may be hard to narrow down those options. When choosing a university in London, you might want to look beyond just the course offerings. Have a think about what student experience you want to receive. And again, I'm going to use Kingston, shoot me. I was a graduate, I loved it. At Kingston, we kind of do quality teaching. We are committed to high quality teaching, like I say, providing an outstanding student experience. We were received with a gold rating in the Teacher Excellence Framework. This framework is run by the Office of Students and ranks higher education student experience, student outcomes, and also gives an overall score to universities. That announcement saw Kingston join an elite lineup of just 26 institutions across the UK who are awarded with a tier of gold in all of those categories. That was including institutions such as Oxford and Cambridge. We are also leading in future skills. This is a progressive model of education designed to help all new graduates become sought after for their knowledge and their skills and their ability to innovate. This is a curriculum that is embedded to every course at Kingston and is championed by research with YouGov and also championed by companies such as Coca-Cola, JP Morgan, and MasterCard, I believe it was. Another thing to kind of consider is, outside of your course, do you want to gain new skills, learn a new language, or try out new hobbies? I think that's a really big important of university life. Maybe you're an innovative person and you want to develop your own ideas or start your own company. Some universities will help you develop and support your own ideas. Again, I'm sorry, at Kingston, we are #1 for graduate startups. So, there is support there. And also other universities do have really amazing startup funds and scholarships that you can really take advantage of. And kind of a last note from me, I would say what I really, really recommend is just go as many open days as you can, both in person and virtual, just to get a feel for each university, because each university is different. And that will help you inform what kind of university experience you want to get and kind of where and how you want to live in London. I really hope that was insightful, and I'll pass back to Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Really great and super to hear about Kingston's accolades as well. So finally, thanks for waiting patiently, Caitlin. We have Caitlin Kelly, who's actually a current student at the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama in London. And I thought we could hear from Caitlin for a few minutes about her experience of studying in London. And then we'll move on to a few questions. I have some questions that were asked before the webinar when you guys registered. And then obviously, if you have any further questions, feel free to put them in the chat or using the Q&A box now. But yes, Caitlin, would love to hear from you about your experiences.
Yeah, so I'm currently in my third year, so I'm in my final year now studying, and I'm originally from Somerset, so I grew up in the countryside, so quite a big difference to London. But the main reason I chose to study specifically in London was the creative arts opportunities comparatively to where I grew up. There's just a lot more job opportunities, a lot more creative sort of opportunities available. As part of my course, I did undertake a placement, which the large majority of students did on my course in London and were able to get really specific tailored placements because of the variety. I ended up doing mine in San Francisco, but like most people did end up doing it in London and had a really positive experience with that. And I also, for me, I wanted to study in a specialized institution. So as it's been touched on, London has got a real wide variety of different universities of different sizes. So because I go to a drama school, we only have about 1,200 students. So it's really small compared to, say, somewhere like Leeds that has 20, 30,000. Like, it is a much more specialized institution with a smaller cohort, which is what I wanted. And a lot of different sort of universities in London will offer obviously different things, but so the great thing as well is, despite being a small institution, we are part of the University of London. So a lot of universities will be part of that. So I have access to libraries, resources, all of that a wide variety of different, all the students that go to University of London organisations have access to. So we also said about the university lifestyle you wanted. So I did want to be able to go to uni and then commute and go home and have kind of that, not separation, but sort of, and it is a different environment to, say, a campus where you are living there, you have your lectures around the corner and it's kind of contained. I wanted to live within a city and have that kind of variety, I guess. With things that I wish I'd known, accommodation was the big one. So my uni, because we're so small, they don't offer any accommodation, and it was my responsibility to find that. So I ended up living in private halls for the 3 years. So I decided not to go for a house, and for me that worked. I liked that security of just having my room and having my accommodation booked. But I know lots and lots of people who from their first year lived in a house, so it is really dependent on what you want, but I did end up living in private halls. And also kind of budget. I actually took a gap year before coming to uni, which I do think really helped. That there is a higher cost of living in London, so that kind of set me up nicely to be able to move here. So as well as having to pay to commute to go to uni, it's 20 minutes on the tube, but little things like that are important, I think, to factor into your budget. I also applied for bursaries, so I was given some money alongside my loan, which again helped with cost of living. And I am also working as a student ambassador. So there are options definitely to support that, that you can undertake. But I think it is just important to be aware of, things are a little bit more expensive, but finding ways to manage that is definitely possible. And I've definitely found that. So yeah, that's kind of everything from me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's some helpful insight, and it's probably quite a nice segue into doing our questions. Anyway, so yeah, guys, in the if you're in the webinar right now, use the Q&A box at the bottom. You can ask any questions, and we'll put them to our presenters now. But first up was a question asked by a student. Bit of a controversial one, maybe. Is it depressing to study in a city? Caitlin, considering you're unmuted, what's your gut reaction to that? I'm assuming you don't find it depressing.
No, no, I don't. Yeah, I think I do feel like I live a more slightly independent lifestyle to perhaps some other campus university students. You know, it is my responsibility to make sure I leave on time to factor in that time to commute and kind of have, I guess, more responsibility in that sense. But I also do feel like I get a university kind of lifestyle. I have a support system, you know, and I can go to if I was sort of finding things a bit isolating, there are sort of support networks to kind of talk about that. But I definitely wouldn't find it sort of depressing. It's just a slightly more independent life, I think, than campus.
Yeah, and I think you're also developing a lot of skills that employers in the future probably value. I mean, they need people that are savvy and able to navigate themselves around and be somewhat independent. Fred, at the Uni of Westminster, do you guys have any initiatives or like clubs or societies to help students, you know, get settled in and make friends and things like that? So, you know, to mitigate any issues like feeling a bit down?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's just like most London universities, you've got things like gym facilities, which helps a lot. You've got sports teams, you know, you've got sports clubs and other types of societies and clubs you can join. And so these societies and clubs are formed by the students themselves. And so there is a sense of community as well, and there is a sense of belonging. Obviously, well-being is something that's very important. Is a buzzword nowadays, and so it's very important. And I think London universities do appreciate that, you know, because of the busyness of the city and there's a lot going on, that help and support is offered to students. And we do have, you know, student support services and other departments as well that help to mitigate those type of issues and things like that. So there is definitely help and support available at the university.
Super. And Ben, you said that you went to Kingston yourself and you wanted to study in London specifically. I assume you enjoyed it. You had a good time and met lots of people and yeah, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't find it depressing. I'm similar background to actually Caitlin. I'm from Wiltshire, so not far from Somerset, and came over to London. Kingston's a little bit different because it is on the kind of outer edges, and it is quite it's a bit of both. It's like both worlds. It's a bit of both. But what I would say is, you know, same with Fred. There's so much support there for you if you are feeling quite down. But also, if it's depressing in terms of, I guess, feeling lost in the crowd, there are so many activities at university to connect you to different people. And I think even in London itself, there's so many green spaces that it kind of doesn't feel like a city. I think there was actually a statistic, I can't remember exactly, but it's about 40% of London's actually green space. So there are a lot of recreational sites. So you're not clustered down in this kind of hustle and bustle all the time. There are a lot of breathing spaces which you can take advantage of.
Absolutely. Caitlin mentioned her accommodation, the fact that you lived in sort of like private accommodation that you'd found the whole 3 years. Someone asked, what are the best areas for accommodation in London? I mean, I'm assuming depending on which university you're going to, you're going to want to probably locate yourself like within easy reach of it. But yeah, maybe Fred, are there particular areas that are lots of students? Would you say it's spread across the whole city? Are there particular areas where maybe it's easier or cheaper to find accommodation?
Yeah,
And
I think it's a
also,
good.
yeah, the university itself, do you guys support with that?
Yeah, sorry, I think it's a very good question. I mean, Caitlin did touch on that in terms of London accommodation itself. So at the University of Westminster, we do have accommodation available. So we've got the Marylebone Hall, Harrow Hall, and also we've got a new accommodation in Wembley. And so depending on where you're going to be studying. So, for example, I mentioned we've got Marylebone campus. So Marylebone halls would be the closest accommodation for the particular student studying there. And so if you're not able to get into halls, or you decide that, you know what, I want to find somewhere else to rent, then we do have a team. The accommodation team do help and support students to find places to live. They do have different organizations and different companies that is subsidized, so you will not be paying extensive amount of money to landlords who are charging you a lot of money. So there is that help and support available if you don't get into halls as well. But there are cheaper definitely areas. Now, East London's definitely cheaper, for example, than maybe West London. And so depending on the borough that you're living in London, things can be a bit more expensive. But there is, again, help and support that the accommodation team will make sure that before you come to the university that you do have help and support. But obviously, it's very important that you do your research and make sure you know the processes before you actually come to London as a student.
Ben, do you think it's typical that a university in London does have halls for students or has university accommodation available?
I would say it depends. Again, there's many different kind of institutions. There are specialized institutions like Caitlin said, so it really depends on the institution. I would say a lot of the bigger ones do have that, and there are, I think I mentioned it in my presentation, a lot of private halls, and again, Caitlin said she went into that. So there are a lot of different options, and there are a lot of university kind of situated housing or kind of rentals that you can take advantage of. But I think have a look at what the university offers. They will have support there, like Fred said. And it's the same with us. We've kind of got 5 different actually halls of residence kind of situated. I think the thing to look out for is a lot of these halls will be offering different offerings. So for instance, there might be cheaper rooms, or there might be ensuite rooms. There's different things for different people and different budgets. So I think just take a look at the options and always just email or just contact the university, because there are support there to help you, because we understand it is a difficult process, A, moving to a new place, B, knowing about finance, anything like that. So we're here to help you. And I think I really highlighted it in my presentation around things like hardship funds. Like, there are mechanisms in case you're struggling, we can help you with. So I think that's the main message from me.
Just a quick plug for Unifrog. If any of you are interested in exploring these universities in London, if you find their profile page on Unifrog, there's always an accommodation link associated with that page. So you'll be taken straight through to the accommodation information for that university, and be able to find the relevant information for that one. We had another question, which was about dealing with London costs. I feel like all of you touched on that to some extent. A question I had was, maybe just anecdotally, how common do you think it is for students to have a part-time job or do a few hours of work in the week typically? I mean, do you know students that do that? I know, Caitlin, you work as a student ambassador for the uni, but maybe at Westminster or Kingston as well. Any thoughts?
I'll go after you, Ben. I'll go after you, Ben.
I was just going to say, yeah, I would say yes, there are a lot of different options for part-time work. Obviously, there are the ambassador program. Each of our presentation touched upon that, so it is a really great offering there for you. It is really flexible around your timetable and your studies, and it is great opportunities to get skills and experience. But also there are loads of different other options around London. There are career fairs, especially for students. I personally, when I went to study, I didn't study during. I didn't study during my studies. I didn't work during my studies. I did it when I had free time and the kind of outside terms. So during the summer term, winter term, and that's the way I kind of supported myself. I know I did graduate 8 years ago and the climate's a bit different, but there are ways to manage it. There are students that don't need to do that. There are students that need to work more, but I've never had, all the students that I work with, and I hire a lot of students, they haven't struggled living in London. They kind of do it to kind of top up what they need. It's not a point of them really struggling. It's just to give them a better quality of life whilst they're studying.
Yeah, I agree with Ben. I think it's just important, especially nowadays in this climate, just to make sure you know how much student loans or maintenance loans you are entitled to, because that's what you're going to use to pay for accommodation costs and different things, cost of living, etc. And so it's just important that you have that information at hand, and that will help you to know whether or not, look, do I need to work extra hours to top up my maintenance loans, or do I not work? Is my parents going to support me? So these are conversations you need to also have as well, especially if you're coming into London, that your parents are fully aware of how much you're going to get and how much they may need to top up for you. Personally, I worked when I was at university when I was in London, and I worked part time simply because I wasn't at university 5 days a week, 9 to 5. I had days where I could go to work as well. So I worked in a sports center at the time. So there's different places you can actually work part time, and so there's lots of opportunities to get extra money in your pocket.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I worked as well when I was at uni. I think it is pretty common. Caitlin, in terms of dealing with London costs as a student, any tips or tricks or anything that you employ? Do you tend to eat? Do you tend to cook dinner a lot yourself at home? Do you avoid eating out? Like, what's it like as a student there at the moment?
Yeah, I think meal prepping is the big one. Yeah, just trying to avoid things like I know it's easy to order in food and stuff, but that is what adds up, I think, with the cost. I mean, there are things like on uni days you can get like a £5 burrito or like, different deals, which I definitely do use like when I do want to go out. So there are ways of making things cheaper, but I also work seasonally as well. So having a job like that where I can go home at Easter and I work in retail and that again just supports a lot. But yeah, I think with social activities as well, I make use a lot of my halls. There are a lot of social spaces, so I can rather than going out to get a coffee or what, I can just invite people in and use the spaces I have here. So that's another way of kind of avoiding too
Yeah,
many.
super. Um, there was a question about moving to London from abroad. I think if you're coming to the UK as a student from elsewhere in the world, London, like Fred mentioned, massively diverse, incredible food scene, like just a great place internationally, a very international place. Um, and I'm gonna park that question just for a moment because we're coming to the end, and I wanted to get thank you, David, for asking a question, and it's a good one to finish on. So to each of you, what is your number one tip for students in London? And it can be anything at all. I'll give you a moment to think about it.
I think for me, what comes to mind, and I'm still trying to work it out, I think the word budget comes to mind. I think that's something that we're all trying to work out. But I think definitely budgeting. You need to look to see, how much money you've got coming in, how much money you've got going out. Do you need to maybe unsubscribe from things like Netflix, maybe Amazon? Do you have multiple accounts? And just look at ways of how you can actually save money. And I think these are skills that will benefit you in the long term, especially when other ventures come after graduation. But I think that's the tip I'll give. Just budget. Again, like I said, it's easier said than done. I'm still trying to figure it out. But I think it's just important. You need to know what's coming in, what's going out, and you probably might be surprised that there's more going out. So maybe get an Excel sheet, a budget sheet, and you can just put all your costs down. And I think that will really help you. So you can just identify where all your money is going to. Do you need to cut back on takeaways, entertainment and things like that? So budget, very important.
I would do a bit more positive and just make the most of it. That doesn't contradict what Fred says about budgeting, because there are so many free things you can do in London. We got, I did fine art. We have the best galleries, the best exhibitions in the world happening in London. You can make the most of that. We've got career fairs. We've got some of the best businesses in London, which do career opportunities that you can do for free. I went to a gig the other day with an amazing artist that I never knew that was free. So there are so many opportunities going on. It is a never-ending city of experiences that you can do on a budget. And I think that's what I would highlight there.
Yeah, I think in a similar vein, like just embracing the city life in a way, like there are so many different places to explore in London. Yes, there's zone 1, but outside of that, there are so many different places that I've had over the 3 years, the joy of kind of exploring and finding. So yeah, there's just so much variety and just make the most of it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much to everybody for coming along this evening and for asking your questions. And thank you very much to our three panelists, Caitlin, Ben, and Fred. I hope to see you all again on another Unifrog webinar very soon. And I encourage you all to check out Royal School of Speech and Drama, Kingston University, and Uni of Westminster on Unifrog or on their university websites. And best of luck with your applications if you're doing them either now, you've only got 3 days, or if you're going to be applying for next year, then best of luck with that as well. So yeah, have a great evening everyone, and see you again. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
See you later. Bye.